For me, the most successful working environments are where there's a true gender balance, because men and women approach problem solving in a very different way
100%.
and neither is better. Both of them working together create a better solution than working separately or only having one. So to have a balanced work environment, I think, is the ultimate.
I'm Elle.
And I'm Pat.
And we are Paddock 43.
And this is your F1 fix. So our next guest has become known for making the best croissants outside of Paris. She is a Melbourne icon, but this isn't and wasn't always her passion.
And we should also add, New York Times has voted the best croissant in the world.
Very exciting. And after studying aeroscape engineering at uni, she followed her Aerospace. What did I say? Aeroscape. Why did I say
That sounds cool.
Yeah.
Aeroscape.
Maybe I'll do that next.
Yeah.
That's like an escape room type thing. Oh, maybe Lune escape rooms. Anyway, if you haven't worked this out, she followed her lifelong passion for F1 racing and became an aerodynamicist for Williams F1. I am shocking at pronouncing things, so I really should have let Pat say that. In the UK in the mid-2000s. Welcome, Dr. Kate Reid.
Thank you.
Round
I
of
feel
applause.
so
She's
honoured.
here. You
Oh my
are our
God.
first doctor on the show.
For real?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
the first doctor that has also brought us an amazing treat, many amazing treats.
I know, so exciting. Kate has
So good.
walked in with a box full of croissants.
We should
It would be rude to not.
because we should mention it's Elle's birthday today as
It's
well.
my birthday. So we are recording this on the 10th of Feb, and I am officially old.
No, you're not.
Well, no.
You've got a few years to go
Yeah.
yet, mate.
I feel like it's just because I've hit that spot where I'm 31.
Oh,
And
God,
I'm like,
old.
okay, but I'm past the 20s now. You know, I can't even say,
You've
I
been
was
past the
29
20s
last
for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, but I can't, yeah.
Okay, Elle,
Yesterday I could say I was 29 last year. Now I can't say that anymore.
I've got great news for you.
Yeah.
For me, when I arrived in my 30s, it was the best decade of my life.
30 was my best year yet. I'll definitely say
And
that.
it just gets
Yeah.
better. So
Yeah.
I created Lune when I was 30. And so the growth of Lune happened over that decade.
Wow.
And I'm even happier to say that I'm in my 42nd year.
Yeah.
And the 40s have been even better than the 30s.
That's what everyone says.
Yeah.
All right, that
Because-
is a little tidbit for everyone out there listening right now. That it gets better, and you
It
can
gets
reinvent
better.
yourself.
You
can.
also, I think when you especially reach your 30s and your 40s, you just know who you are and you're more
Yeah.
confident
Yeah.
in yourself. And then you just get on with life being who you are, which is great.
And you just kind of have to like disregard the societal pressure that was sort of put on us. And I think having chats like this is always a good way to be like, actually, no.
I agree.
I especially
the
love it
societal
when we
pressure.
have these conversations and you speak with other successful women that have pivoted or changed something in their life, but not doing what they thought they were going to be doing in their 20s, because it just goes to show you can actually do whatever you want
Yeah.
and just follow it
Yep.
and be successful.
And
Yes.
maybe one day I will pivot again.
Exactly.
And because I've done it once successfully, I know that if I want to, that ability is there for me.
Oh, well,
So-
it's going to be an aero escape room.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I
Aero
forgot.
escape. We've already decided your next
We've
contract.
already decided that that's what's happening.
Aero escape rooms.
Aero escape rooms.
You're going to have to learn how to
blah, blah,
bake
blah.
a croissant and then at the same time solve like an engineering
And
problem
drive
on
a Formula One car.
Combined all
All
your
of the
life successes.
Before we get into
yes.
it, before and I forgot we didn't actually ask you this, so this is like putting you a little bit under pressure.
Oh, great.
We have this new thing that we like to ask our guests: a warm-up lap. The warm-up lap involves your most embarrassing story.
One just came to mind that I certainly cannot say on air. My most embarrassing story.
Can you tell us that one afterwards?
Definitely not.
Okay.
No, that one's going to my grave with me.
Okay, one of those.
Yeah.
I love those sort of
my
stories.
most embarrassing story. Okay, it's not embarrassing, but it's a great story.
Okay.
So I'm going to share it.
Yeah, we love a great story.
So jumping right into the middle of my life story, I spent a bit of time at this incredible boulangerie in Paris called Du Pain et Décidé, which is where I learnt to love the croissant and then eventually came back to Melbourne and created Lune. It means that every time I go to Paris, the very next morning, the first place I go to is always Du Pain et Décidé as an ode to what it has given me in life. So back in, I think, probably 2018, woke up on my first morning in Paris, wandered down to Dupin. They have this amazing picnic table out the front, like a vintage table. So you go order your pastry and coffee and then you come sit out the front and eat it. And my go-to is always a pistachio dark chocolate escargot. So I'm sitting at one end of the picnic table and these two girls like arrive at the other end of the picnic table and I had no idea where they were from. Anyway, they started talking at some point and they had Australian accents. And I was like, oh, cool, they're Australian. So anyway, we weren't talking, but then they finally looked down at me and they said to me, where are you from? I said, oh, I'm from Australia. How about you guys? And they said, yeah, we're Australian too. What part of Australia are you from?
no.
And I said, oh, Melbourne. And they're like, yeah, us too. And they're like, we've come to this bakery because there's this place in Melbourne called Lune. Have you heard of it? And I'm like, oh, no. They're like, oh, my God, it's so good. We go there every week. And apparently the girl who started Lune trained at this place. And so we've come to see what their pastries are like. And I'm like, oh, what do you think? And they're like, oh, my God, Lune is so much better.
Oh, my God. I was
Anyway, I was mortified. I didn't also sitting out the front of my favourite boulangerie in Paris. And so I just kind of got out of there. I'm like, well, nice to meet
Owner's
you
looking
guys.
at you through the window.
Oh, it was lovely as well. Anyway, months later, I'm back working in the Cube in Fitzroy in my chef's whites, minding my own business, and I look up and the two girls walk in. Wow. And I obviously hadn't admitted to them that I was the person that they were talking about too. And we just had this moment of realization and clarity between us, eye contact, and they're like, you. And I'm like, yeah. Anyway, it was.
Oh my God,
it's
that's
not embarrassing.
No,
but-
no.
Yeah.
I love that. That's way better than an embarrassing story. I feel like I got goosebumps.
I love that story.
was
I
cute.
love that they came back and they were
Yeah.
like, oh my God.
I love that you recognized each other as well.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I have like a little bit of a bond with everybody that I meet that
course.
I didn't know before but talks to me about Lune. They form a little special place in my heart. So,
Definitely.
yeah.
What a beautiful story. I love that.
so it wasn't embarrassing though.
No, but I understand the embarrassing.
Yeah, it's
like,
that- and
you
it's
don't
that
want to admit
moment.
it because it's your like, you know.
It was
it's your
awkward
baby.
in the moment.
Yeah. And also that moment of, do I say something? I'm just going to keep quiet.
Do you reckon you would have said something? If you like,
Because then you're sort of like, I don't
looking
want to
back
feel
at
like
it
I
now.
sound, and it's not at all. But it's like, you don't want to be like, oh, I don't want to be arrogant. And maybe that's like
Yeah,
something that
that's
I feel like that
pretty
happens
shit to
us
be. Oh, am I
women.
allowed to say that on the podcast?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you
Okay, it's pretty shit to be like, yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
I mean, what type of a tosser?
I
would
don't think
do
it's
that.
tosser.
Yeah.
You could have just been like, yes, that's me.
Yeah, but then it would have also
so
ruined
awkward.
my little moment at the front
Yeah.
of the bakery. I was just kind of
Yeah.
having my moment.
Yeah.
So
True.
And then they would have
It's your
been like,
time.
oh my gosh. And then like, what are you doing in Paris? Let's hang out. Like,
yeah. Sometimes it's nice to be anonymous.
yes.
All right. Well, we have to get now into our interview.
F1?
The warm-up lap is
F1.
done.
The
I'm
warm-up
so
lap is
excited to be on a podcast that specializes in F1 because normally it's all about croissants.
Yeah.
But obviously my first love was F1. So this is very exciting for me and to talk to girls about it too, which is a relatively new thing in the industry.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of women. I'm going to
No.
call us women because apparently that's what we have to do now.
It's like, I'm still a girl.
I still feel like a girl.
I'm just a baby.
When someone says to me like, oh, madam, I'm like, who are you talking about?
Oh,
Madam.
I've heard people say to their kids, like, say to the lady, I'm like, I'm not a lady.
I'm a girl.
Oh, like, I'm just a girl.
Pat, you're definitely not a lady today looking at your top, Pat. You've walked in here with
Go on.
coffee. Show it off. Show it
I
off.
know, I was like, I'm just going to cover that. But yeah, and then I dropped some custard.
But you did it for me to make me feel less bad about wearing activewear.
Exactly.
So thank
I
you.
just went, oh.
All right. So, Kate, what made you choose aerospace engineering in the first place? Was it something that you were always interested in?
Oh, such a good question. I feel okay. Can I ask you guys a question?
Yes.
Am I allowed?
Of
course.
What made you two get into Formula One?
The noise.
Since I was a little girl, like my dad and my mum were obsessed with it.
Okay.
And there's, LC, and there's photos of me and my little, I looked like a little boy when I was a girl. I had this little Ferrari
were a girl.
outfit and like
Cute.
shorts and top and I have heard some of your interviews before, and there was a moment that you spoke about, which I was like, I actually remember having a moment like that where you remembered a moment that you had at your first F1 race. And I remember so clearly when I was little going to the F1 and the smell the sounds and
It's
similar
so like
cloudy
all
day.
consuming of the senses.
Yeah. So I remember being in prep, and that's when, you know, the engines, you could hear them from kilometers.
Yeah, like the V10s.
Yes.
Oh, they were nice.
Yeah.
And that's what we would hear. I remember
Yeah.
sitting on the floor cross-legged.
It was like a little high-pitched squeal on a breeze,
Yeah.
you know, from
Yeah.
10 kilometres away.
Yeah. It
So
was amazing.
same as you, since a very young girl. Well, my dad actually raced Formula Vs before I was born. So when mum was pregnant with me, dad was going off to the races and mum was like
Terrified.
the begrudging pit crew. So I feel like the fumes and the sound
gonna say, was it the
infiltrated her belly.
vibrations?
Yeah, like when she was pregnant with me. But then when mum had me, then I became part of the pit crew in the stroller next to the pram. But then dad stopped racing.
Yeah.
But I think dad loved cars so much, like cars in general. And I'd love to spend my weekends, you know, going out in the car with him. And he taught me about all the different models. I could pick the badges and we'd drive along and I'd say, Mercedes-Benz, Porsche, Mazda. And dad was so proud that I could pick them all. But he loved watching Formula One. And it was the thing that we would do together. And when I was too young to stay up late on a Sunday night, we'd record it and watch it the next Monday.
Yeah.
But when I was young, because I'm a good decade older than the both of you, when I was young, the Australian Grand Prix was hosted in Adelaide.
Yes.
And when I was in my early teens, it moved from Adelaide to Melbourne. And yes, same as you, my first experience, I was 13 years old. Dad let us have the Friday off school to go to see F1
man.
free practice. Good man.
Yes.
And we
I
would
love seeing dads with their daughters still at the AusGP.
Oh, it's cute,
And it is one of
isn't
the
it?
best things. It's kind of like when they took their daughters to see Taylor Swift as well. Same vibe.
I also think
Same
it's those sort of
vibe.
experiences that it's like it's fine to take your child out of school for an experience like this because these experiences
it should
are
be
things that
celebrated.
Shape, it should be celebrated because these are things that shape you. Missing out on a couple of math lessons or a couple of English lessons is not going to change your life, but something like that is actually a life-changing moment.
So it's a good point, and it's something that I say a lot in terms of getting more women into motor racing. If you can see it, you can be it.
Yep.
And I mean, there were no women really working in Formula One back in 1996, really. But like for me, actually witnessing being at the circuit, I don't think it's called Brocky's Hill anymore, but it's in the general admission area. So we'd entered through the gate and come across the hill. It's where there's that big sweeping left-hander around the lake.
Yeah, near gate 1, turn 11.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. So good knowledge. Gate 1, turn 11. So we'd
me running
entered through
around there.
gate 1. We'd gone over Brocky's Hill and it was the middle of free practice. And as you've said, we could hear the cars, you know, from our home in Glen Iris, but they got louder and louder as we approached the circuit. And finally Dad gave us, you know, earplugs. And I was like, oh, this is a bit dangerous and exciting. I have to wear earplugs. But, you know, then the sound just rips through you.
Yeah.
It's like when the fighter jets do their aerial display and then there's this blur of colour going in front of your face on what's normally a 60-kilometre-an-hour road in Melbourne.
With
that you know,
duckies.
yeah, with ducks and, you know, people canoeing on the lake. And it was an absolute feat of technology. And I was just so enraptured by the entire thing that it was kind of like having a drug for the first time. Not that I have ever had drugs, but like it's what I
It's the
imagine it
equivalent.
feels
Yeah.
like. I was so addicted to the way it made me feel that after that, I just did everything in my power to get myself as close to Formula One as possible. And I knew in that moment that I wanted my whole life to be about F1. So I went off to the open day at RMIT University that year to try and find out what course would be best to study to work in Formula One and aerospace engineering. I was thinking that automotive would be the best, but I got chatting to one of the lecturers there and he said, well, a Formula One car is a little bit more like an aeroplane than it is a car. And if you want to give yourself the best shot at getting into the industry, I'd really suggest trying to get into aerospace engineering. So very long story short, my goal was to work in Formula One by studying aerospace engineering from about the age of 13 or 14.
So that's incredible. Like I always find it so admirable people that from a young age, I mean, mind you have had a pivot in your career, but
Yeah.
know what they want to do. And the fact that you were able to pick from 13 and then go through your whole entire schooling with that goal in mind is fascinating.
It's admirable.
It's so admirable.
It's funny you say as well, that your mum was pregnant with you at the track when your dad was racing. Because last year at the AusGP, Pat was 6 months pregnant. 7 months pregnant.
Yeah.
And we were racing around that whole track
This is
all
your future.
week.
This is your future.
I love it.
I remember just standing above the straight on top of the garages. And Pat's just like, oh, smell that petrol. And I was like, I don't think that's good.
Yeah, I was like,
for the baby.
Bottle this smell.
And she's like, feel that vibration like rubbing her belly.
It's funny to pivot the story. So when I got back into Formula One, it was through a friend of mine that I'd met working in F1. She was over in Australia with the Mercedes F1 team. And she invited Cam and I to come on the Sunday as a guest of Mercedes. Anyway, she came up and got us in the corporate suite just before the race started. And she's like, come with me, guys. And I'm sure you guys know they've got those leather armchairs in the back of the Mercedes garage. And she said, you can watch the start of the race from here. So Cam and I are sitting there and, you know, I think it must have been, maybe it was Rosberg and Hamilton at the time. Both were getting into their cars and they fired up the engines. And you know when the fumes, you're so close to them that the air goes a bit ripply?
Yeah.
And I looked over at Cameron and he was crying. And he's like, it's the fumes. It's the fumes. I'm fine. This is great.
It's like day of my life.
Sees Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, so Pat's baby is also called Gabrielle. So big expectations.
love it.
And obviously we have a new Gabrielle on the track this year, Gabrielle
Yes.
Bortoleto. So
yes.
my Gabrielle, you know, I named him before
has big
Gabrielle
shoes
got
to
a
fill.
sick. But yes, he does have big shoes to fill.
Oh, I love that.
But okay, so you've done your university degree.
Yep.
What happens next?
So one of the lecturers that taught me structures during university, he spent a period of time studying in the UK at a university called Cranfield. And they're very much like a naval and aviation-based university over in the UK. And as such, they've got a really good aerodynamics program. But there's kind of this motorsport valley that's northwest of London, just outside the M25, I'm going to say, like kind of wrapping from Reading, where McLaren is, all the way around to Milton Keynes, where Red Bull is. A lot of the teams are based there. So Cranfield's smack bang in the middle of the motorsport valley, and they'd started a motorsport engineering and motorsport engineering and management masters. And it was partially funded by the F1 teams. So it was kind of like a golden ticket into Formula One, and he'd encouraged me to apply for it. So as the year after I graduated from aerospace, I had a 12-month contract working at Ford while I was trying to figure out my next move to get myself closer to Formula One. I applied for the masters at Cranfield and was accepted for it for the following year. And then I thought, right, I've got my foot in the door there. Like that I knew that was going to guarantee me a job in Formula One, but I am the most impatient person on the planet. And I thought, okay, now that I've got that, I'm going to try and get some work experience, just volunteering. So I was writing from all Formula One teams. I even tried rally teams, Formula 3, Formula 3000 in the Euro and the Australian series. Like anyone that had a motorsport team was getting a letter from me. And I basically got silence back.
Really?
Yeah, it's like a few letters of rejection, but I mean, you guys know it. It's okay. So I'm going to get to this actually. It's a nice part to the story. So I did hear from a Formula 3 team in Australia called Scud Racing, and they said, yeah, you can come down and do a bit of volunteering if you want. And that was an eye-opening experience for me because I basically got bullied by the two mechanics.
Oh my
But
gosh.
it's funny. It wasn't
way too
mean
common.
bullying though. It was just like there was this private school educated girl with an aerospace engineering degree who wanted to come down and volunteer at the team, and they were like hard nosed. They'd been working as mechanics their whole life, and they probably thought, oh, now we've got this kid to babysit.
How old were you?
21, 22.
Yep.
And that's fine. Like I actually understand that it would have been a pain in the ass for them, but I was so naive. I didn't care that they were sort of teasing me and like poking my ribs a bit, you know, metaphorically. I just wanted to be in a team and be immersed and learn and absorb as much as I could. And I think after a while, they just got over the teasing and thought, oh, okay, she's actually here for real reasons. And I learned such valuable stuff working at that team. Like, they taught me how to change a gearbox and like break down suspension. And it's funny, all the theoretical engineering knowledge that you have kind of means nothing. Like, okay, let's think about it. You design a new front wing for a Formula One team, but it takes 3 hours to change. It's completely useless. Like, the thing has to be functional and fit its purpose. It can't just be the most beautiful aerodynamic component ever. It's got to be like 10 seconds to change a front wing. Otherwise, it's actually not a useful front wing for a mechanic. And you've got to think about it from a mechanic's perspective as well. Like, how is this the most user-friendly thing that I can do that ensures they can whip it on and off the car as quickly as possible? Yeah. So I learned stuff about practical design when I was working for that team. So I've got my job at Ford and I'm doing my volunteering on the weekends at Scud Racing. And I've got Cranfield lined up for the following year. But then literally randomly out of the blue, the one Formula One team that replies to me, which was my dream team, is Williams. And I get an email from them saying, oh, we've received your letter to ask about volunteering, but we're actually recruiting for junior aerodynamicists at the moment and we'd like to interview you for a job.
Yeah, score.
Yeah.
Massive
This
score.
is, sorry to interrupt, but this, for anyone listening, is also a good reminder. Just if you want to do something, do everything possible. You can never be too annoying. Write the letters, make the calls, because out of the
don't ask,
100,
you
if you
don't
don't
get.
ask, you don't
Be
receive.
the squeakiest wheel you can possibly
Because out
be.
of the 100 that you send, you just need one.
And
you
it's
need
funny.
one.
So this is coming around to it now. The reason I wasn't getting responses is when I was working for Williams, the HR manager told me that more than 3,000 CVs a week landed on her desk. And being the squeaky wheel is about being persistent because jobs come along very rarely in Formula One. I think the lesson that I learned is that once you're in, if you've proven to get through the recruitment process for one team, you're then a safe bet for every other team. So rather than recruiting new people from outside the industry, teams are more likely to recruit from within, and there's a lot of movement between the teams. So
I guess there's a lot of talk as well where I know that. I worked with that person there. Or,
absolutely. Which is what happened to me when I was working at Williams. I actually got a call from, they were called Midland at the time, but they changed to Spiker. They're now the Aston Martin team. Yep. They actually called me and someone within the team had heard about me and they kind of headhunted me from Williams to go to what was then Spiker. But it's for me, that Williams job, yes, I had the right degree and I was building up the right type of work experience, but it's also a matter of luck with timing. Like, my CV just happened to land on the desk at a time that they were looking for a junior aerodynamicist, and a junior aerodynamicist didn't need previous experience. And I do sometimes wonder if the fact that I was a girl made my CV stand out a bit more. So there's a lot of luck and timing involved in there, but be persistent, be noisy, just keep trying and keep asking. And because I was so passionate about making this my career, like literally nothing could get me down or stop me. I was just like, if that doesn't work, I'll do this. And I was just going to keep pushing until I got there. So I landed a job in Formula One before I did the Masters at Cranfield, and I ended up not doing the Masters because one of my colleagues at Williams was like, why would you go and do an expensive 2-year Masters to get a job in Formula One when you've already got a job in Formula One?
You're going to learn more on the job.
You're going to learn more on the job, exactly.
What was that first day at Williams like?
Oh, like I've got goosebumps.
I wish, if you're not watching this, please just go back the last 5 seconds and watch Kate's face just smile then, because her eyes just popped out of her head.
Yeah, it was – okay, so a lot of people that attend the Australian Grand Prix will be able to – put themselves in this moment. Up until the day I walked in the door at Williams, I had only ever had a grandstand pass, which I'd worked really hard as a kid every year to spend the hundreds of dollars to have a 4-day pass. It was my favourite 4 days of the year. I would just sit like from the minute gates open till the minute gates close. I was glued to that seat. I insisted, like Dad and I do the pit lane walks with, 1,000 other people, and you're trying to look over the shoulders of 5 rows deep just to catch a glimpse of the car. Like that's the closest. Oh my God, I feel emotional.
I get it though.
We all get it.
Yeah.
When
it's like when you hear, you feel that, and it's like, because
it's sad when, I don't know, whenever the Oz GP is over as well.
Oh, it's like I fall into a depressive slump.
You're on this high, and then you're like, oh, no.
Yeah, it's
And
like,
then
how do I go
now
back
I've got
to
to wait
normal life?
360 days.
Or and I have to watch it on TV.
Yeah.
Yeah, how do you go back to normal life?
You
and then
don't.
it's that whole thing, and sort of semi-circling back what you were saying when you were a little girl and how you would record.
Yeah.
Where nowadays, again, like Jen said, you're very lucky that we can watch every single little possible piece of coverage over an entire Grand Prix
And all
weekend.
the behind the scenes and all the
scenes,
extra content. It's
Ted's
amazing.
playbook, all these different things we can watch. But back
all
then
I had was Murray Walker and the Channel 9 coverage.
and like a recording of just that the following day.
Yeah.
Oh.
So insane. Yeah.
So,
Sorry.
Yes.
like, up until this moment, this is what I dreamt about, and I'd never touched a Formula One car. Maybe the closest I'd ever been to one was a few meters away, but there'd been 100 people between me and it. And so I walked in. I was taken in by the HR woman to the aerodynamics department, and it was a relatively new facility, I think about 2 years old, state of the art, beautiful. And I was taken in to see the 2 wind tunnels. So it's rare, like now most of the teams have wind tunnels, but I think Williams was one of the first teams to have a wind tunnel, which was game-changing from an aerodynamic design perspective.
Because most teams, sorry to interrupt, but most teams, they will outsource, like use a different air tunnel, right?
Yeah. Well, especially the ones with a smaller budget.
Yeah.
But like the likes of Ferrari and McLaren, Mercedes all now have in-house wind tunnels. So I was taken upstairs to see the 60% scale tunnel, which is located where the model makers, where their model department is as well. So every component designed by the aerodynamicists downstairs is then made at 60% scale and tested in the 60% scale wind tunnel.
So interesting.
Yeah. So I was taken into that tunnel first, and they were in the middle of a test. So the engineers basically didn't even acknowledge my existence. But here I was standing with Formula One engineers in a control room. Yeah, I was like, wipe that smile off my face. Anyway, then by this stage I was with my senior aero who was going to be my manager. And he's like, all right, they're a bit busy in here. Let's go into the full scale wind tunnel. And I was like, a second wind tunnel? And he's like, yeah, this is where we test the actual race car. So we went to the other end of the building, and I walked in, and there was the Williams F1 car in the tunnel. And they weren't testing at the time. The model makers were making a change, the wind tunnel technicians were making a change. And so Francois was like, come in, let's go. So I'm now in the wind tunnel with the car, touching it, talking to the engineers and the wind tunnel technicians, and I'm like, pinch me. It was...
Oh, I love this.
Yeah, I'd gone from
special.
being a little kid sitting in the Prost stand on turn 16 to standing in the wind tunnel, being like, this is the car that I'm going to help design. It was literally every little part of my brain exploded on that day.
I just can't even imagine that, not even just that, everything before that, the feeling of getting on the plane, of what I'm about to go do, the feeling of getting dressed that morning, and the feeling of walking in and smelling.
Have you read my book? I've literally written those.
Really?
Words.
Oh my gosh. No. It's like, I have not read your book, but wow.
It's funny because I woke up that morning and I knew that it was the day that I'd been dreaming about for my entire life. But I got up and I had breakfast and a shower and I got dressed and I got on the bus and I did all these really normal things. But I probably just, I was on autopilot.
Yeah.
I don't know how I even functioned as a human that morning because all my dreams were about to come true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
It's so beautiful. This is a really beautiful chat.
I know.
I'm sorry. I'm not
Yeah.
normally this emotional when I
No.
talk about it.
Oh my
love
gosh,
this
no.
because
It's pure.
I can see so much passion that comes out of you as you talk about this, and that how hard you worked, and you've had a childhood dream.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not many people get that moment when their childhood dream actually comes true and you work so hard to get it. So I have goosebumps
But I'm
thinking
going to
about
wind,
it.
I'm going to
like
wind the
sweating. I
clock
didn't wear
back
enough
to the
deodorant
day
today.
that I flew.
Yeah.
I was sitting on the floor of my room with all my stuff packed around me, and all of a sudden I felt really nervous about leaving. And until that moment, it hadn't dawned on me that, like, Formula One had been this thing that Dad and I did. And I was like leaving Dad.
Yeah. Oh.
It was like, in order to do this thing that I really wanted to do, I had to let go of it being something that had bonded Dad and I and go to the other side of the world. And all of a sudden there was this little part of me that was thinking, am I doing the right thing? Like, what is this thing that I love? Do I love it for the reasons that I think I love it, or do I love it because it's this thing that I share with my dad that we're obsessed with watching together and talking about and dissecting and hypothesizing? And there was this moment of, oh, am I doing the right thing?
I was going to say just to that, like, yeah, you would have had that moment of being like, wait, is this actually something I love, or is it the bond that I love with my dad? Because you are so young as well.
Yeah.
I mean, we all learn so much as we move on throughout life that it would have been such a discombobulating thing trying to work out in your head. And you're like, but I'm also leaving my family, just all the emotions.
Well, I was telling this story to some world's 50 best journalists that came to Lune last year, and I was in an incredibly stressed period and I got really emotional telling the story, and all of a sudden this woman sitting opposite me at the bar at Lune just started bawling her eyes out, and she's like, I'm living my on paper dream life. I always wanted to be a journalist working in food, living in London, but like the thing that had made me love food was going out and eating with my mum and dad, and I've got this such close bond with my dad. And the day that I got on the plane to move to London to live my dream life, she's like, oh my gosh, it actually means I have to leave my family. And she said, I just feel this constant tug of war in me that I'm living my dream life and my dream job, but away from the people that mean the most to me.
People don't talk about that enough.
No, we don't. Like,
No.
What is important in life, and
Family.
it is, yes, absolutely. And it is clear to me that I can't survive without a core purpose that drives me. And a core purpose is like, what do I spend my days doing? And what am I doing to contribute to the world and to make myself feel fulfilled? But also life is about family and about the people that we love. And it's about finding that balance and I'm not good at finding the balance. Like, I normally prioritize that purpose in the core of me, but at times that's meant that I've separated myself from people that I really need to make myself feel like I've got an amazing life.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Sorry, that got deep
Don't
fast.
you dare get sorry. I love it. Yeah. And I thought, like, kind of just to finish this point, but I think as well, like, that moment you're getting on the plane, I can only imagine your dad would be like, I am so proud. And it would always be something that would, he'd be like, yeah, we started this and look at her continue this. And then you're forever going to share it, because I'm sure you're on the phone going, oh my gosh, my first day was like this. Oh, I've done this. And
So
I
there was
learnt
this. My first week working at Williams. Okay, so like, let's just get straight to it. The working hours in Formula One are not okay.
And what work-life balance?
Yeah, no, there's none. There are contracted hours. No one works the contracted hours. So I think most nights I would see 8 or 9 o'clock at night tick over, and then my team leader would never leave. I'm convinced he just slept under the desk. Wow. That's me being. He didn't. Sorry, I don't.
But maybe he did.
He was always there when I got to work,
Yeah.
and he was always there when I left. So I don't know when he went home. But there was this one particular night. I was about 9 o'clock at night the first week I was working, and the office had started to thin out by then. And the door to the office opened, and Sir Frank Williams rolled in his wheelchair, and my desk faced out onto the main corridor. And I saw him roll past my desk, but then I saw his head stop and he rolled backwards and he looked over my cubicle and said, "Oh my God, it's a girl." Because to go back and talk about women I was the only female working in a technical capacity at Williams in 2006. It was a team of 500. There were a handful of women working in HR, marketing and hospitality, but not one working in technical. And so the aero facility, which was the most, I guess it was the most secretive department so we had extra security clearance. I was the only female in the building of 120 and they didn't even have a female toilet. So Sir Frank and I shared the disabled toilet.
I love that you shared a toilet with Sir Frank. Like, that reminds me of that movie about Apollo 8. Is it Apollo 8?
Oh, no, Hidden Figures?
Maybe,
I
yes.
think Hidden Figures.
Where they didn't
have
they
a
always
female
question
toilet.
why she took an hour and a half to go to the toilet and she cracked it because she was like, "You've got no toilets for blacks here."
Yeah. Yeah.
And so she's like, "I have to run across campus."
Yes.
To just
That's
relieve
a fantastic
myself.
movie, actually.
Well, I was having a chat 12 months ago with an Australian girl who works for Sauber or Kick. Kick now. Yeah. I'm old school. They're Sauber to me. She works in CFD at Sauber. And we were talking about this and she's like, "Oh my God, Kate, they still don't have a female toilet on my level in 2024 back then." 2024.
Stop.
She's like, "I've got to go like 4 levels up in my building to go to a female toilet."
Oh my
and
God,
she
that's
said,
not true.
"There's the male toilets and then a male shower." And she'd asked, managers and HR if the shower could possibly be converted into a female toilet. And it was under review.
That makes me so mad.
Anyway, to go back to Sir Frank.
I would have just gone to the
Yeah,
toilet.
back
Like,
to Sir
"Stop
Frank."
this. I'm using this toilet. Yes.
Yeah.
Sir Frank.
So
Cherry
Sir
toilet
Frank,
with Sir Frank.
Sir Frank meets me on the first week, rolls his wheelchair back. "Oh my God, it's a girl." But then he stopped and had this really lovely informal chat asking me where I was from. He said how much he loved Melbourne. It was one of his favourite cities. And the whole time I was just sitting there being like, "Oh my God, I can't wait to tell my dad."
Yeah.
Because it was one of those things where, we'd only ever seen Sir Frank Williams on television being interviewed after race wins.
Yeah.
And suddenly I was having this really intimate conversation at my desk at Williams with the man whose name was above the door.
Yeah.
It was this wild moment where I couldn't wait to tell Dad.
Oh my gosh, of course. So special.
That was a roundabout story, wasn't it? We covered a few topics there.
I love that story.
I love it, yeah.
My next question was going to be, what's your favourite memory from F1? And I think that I don't need to hear it.
Yeah.
No,
I'm very happy
that
with that one.
is not my favourite memory from F1.
Oh, okay.
It was at Williams the same year I worked. So going back to it's so much about Dad. Going back to Dad, our favourite race to watch every year, apart from the Australian one, was Monaco, because it's just there's just something so untouchable about the entire experience, like whether it's the setting, the city, the royalty, like the insane narrowness and windiness of the track.
It's funny, you get that feeling just walking into Monaco
Don't
itself.
you?
You're like, I shouldn't be here.
Yeah. And I've been to Monaco 3 times and each time it's been for F1. So I don't even know what the city feels like without it being Grand Prix. But yeah, I can imagine it just feels like a city that
I think it commands
don't
that
belong
same
here.
energy.
Yeah.
I was there last year and I was just like, this feels untouchable. And I'm manifesting that I will be here one day.
Yeah.
So manifesting it, Dad and I would sit in our lounge rooms, the last weekend in May every year. And it doesn't exist anymore because I think in 2011 there were a few accidents and they changed the layout of the circuit, the chicane after they come out of the tunnel.
Yep.
But before they changed that, there was this really long, narrow stand that was at the exit to the tunnel, kind of facing the same direction as the cars were coming as they came out of the tunnel. So you looked at that chicane and then around to the pool area. Mm-hmm. And Dad and I were just enamored with this particular stand. And it was our dream to watch a Monaco Grand Prix from that stand. So the first year I was working at Williams, Dad came over to visit me and we decided to go to Monaco. And I mean, the tickets were just crazy expensive to go on the Sunday. So we booked a ticket in that stand for the Saturday. And we arrived in Monaco on the Saturday morning and had to catch a boat across the harbour to get to our stand. And we were just both speechless at the fact that it was happening. And at the time I was living with one of the race mechanics on the team, and he'd heard on the grapevine that I was in Monaco. So my phone rang and he's like, hey, do you want to come and hang out in the pits? And I was like, Dad?
Stop the grandstand. Oh, I'm hitting the cameras here.
So we literally got back on the boat, went, and then we hung out in the pits for a couple of hours.
Oh my gosh.
Chatting to like Jackie Stewart, and David Coulthard was there.
Your
And
dad just would have been like, this is the best.
Dad was playing it so cool bananas. He was like, hi, Jackie, my name's Bob. I was internally just dying.
Mate, I'm Bob.
See, and that's those moments where you get to then share it with your dad.
Yeah. But then, okay, so this is the favourite F1 moment. And I mean, it is. I'll share the story first and then we'll talk about the whole undertone of it. But one of the race engineers came up to me, like I'd never met him before, and he's like, oh, are you one of the aerodynamicists from the factory? And I said, yeah. He was like, great. I'm going to put a lanyard on you. Can you just go down into the pits? You've got a good camera. I can see that. We just need to get a few spy photos of some of the aerodynamic components, and no one will suspect that you're an engineer because you're a girl.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's bad.
I kind of love it, but I also, part of me is like, a girl couldn't possibly be an engineer.
Yeah.
It's really
yeah.
bad.
And
I
there's
mean,
so much to say about that as well. It's like, I don't know if I want to spy. And
Oh,
also,
no.
like, are you?
Well, I mean, like it was
interesting for you.
perfect
Yeah.
because, you know, we weren't winning at the time. I think we
Yeah.
were more mid-pack. It was Webber and Rosberg that year. So when you're not winning, you're just trying to figure out what the winning car's doing. And like that year, Fernando Alonso and the Renault was just blitzing everyone else. So obviously the team wanted me to try and get some sneaky Renault shots, but it kind of goes against my engineering ethos to just try and copy someone else. And I mean, that has worked its way into everything that we do at Lune now. Like I love other bakeries, but I don't look what they do. I don't follow any other bakeries on Instagram because I don't want to be inspired by.
You don't want to cloud your judgment of what's going on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for me, I guess one of the things that I didn't love about being an aerodynamicist in F1 was that I felt like it was going to be really blue sky thinking, where we looked at the regulations and, you know, every car's different. Every suspension system has its own intricacies. I mean, all the cars look similar to look at, but if you look at them in detail, they're quite different. And I just really wanted to go in there and understand how our car was performing and come up with ideas as to how we could improve it based on our own car's design.
Yeah.
But because we weren't winning, and F1's all about money, and those sponsors want the car to be at the front of the grid, you really just try to do quick fixes as much as you can, and that means looking at what other cars are doing. So yes, the spy photo, I felt like I was actually doing something that could really contribute to the performance of the car by going down there. And it was also...
Did you change Williams' history?
No, I don't think I did.
Those photos.
Those photos.
But I do actually still have the photos, which is wild.
I love that.
But there was this one moment where I was at the Renault car and I was trying to get a photo of, I think it was, we were exploring what was happening on the back half of the side pod. They were like, I think there was some aerodynamic trend at the time about having like a top deck wing. So this like little element that sat on the back of the side pod, and that's what they specifically wanted me to get a photo of. And one of the mechanics, like this amorous Frenchman, was like, you want me to pose in front of the car? And I was like, can you get out of the way? You're blocking them.
Yeah, it's like just...
Yeah. So, no, but it was a pretty magical moment, I guess. 13-year-old Kate who, you know, had just dreamt about working in Formula One. Suddenly I was an aerodynamicist for the Williams F1 team in the pits at Monaco taking spy photos of other
Secret
cars.
Spy.
Yeah.
James Bond style. How do you think teams are like spying now? Because
They do it all the time.
Yeah, but how are they doing it now?
I
mean, back then it would have been easy because, like you said, it's bad, but
when
no
you
one's
look
going
at
to suspect a girl.
So we
makes
also
me so
talk
mad.
about how much content there is now that you can just access on demand.
Yeah.
Like there's so much analysis of the cars because I think, you know, from Drive to Survive, the interest in F1 has just exploded and everyone's cottoned onto that. So everyone who can create content for Formula One knows that there'll be an audience there. And of course the audiences, I don't work in it anymore, but I'm assuming that teams use a lot of television footage or
I even think just, at an F1.
just being at the circuit.
Yeah, being at the circuit.
Like you
and
see Toto or Christian Horner walking up and down the pits. Like
Yeah.
they're not just walking up to shake hands, they're looking.
They're like,
Yeah.
but even I think as well, just there's so many people that have access to more, like in garages and things. And I know that they're always like, put your phone away. I'm sure there's always someone that's doing a cheeky little do. There'd be so much
interesting.
out there.
So when I left Williams to go and work at the second team, I hadn't looked at the small print in my contract because I thought that I was never going to leave Williams. Like this was my dream job. And so when I handed in my notice, I was put on 3 months gardening leave.
Oh, yeah.
And it was only 3 months because I was junior.
Yeah.
The aerodynamicists and senior aeros had 6 months gardening leave. And normally gardening leave is like, just go home and for 3 months before you start your job. But in Formula One, gardening leave is they put you in a little room and you have to attend contracted hours every day to see out your contract. And so I got put in a room with no window. You have a computer with the internet on it. It doesn't have internal network access. I read a lot of books. I played solitaire and I got really depressed.
I was going to say, what?
Well, it means that by the time you start at the new team, your knowledge of
is
the design of the
wiped.
car is 3 months or 6 months behind.
Yeah.
So you can't take current design knowledge to your new team.
Yeah. So you started as a junior aerodynamicist, and then how long were you at Williams for? And then what was you left as a junior aerodynamicist? Yep.
So I was at Williams for a year.
Yep.
And then the reason that I left Williams was I was given advice that the team, so it's so complicated. It's one of the teams like Sauber or Kick that's changed names a million times. It was Jordan, and then I think it went to Midland. I don't think there was any team was that Minardi as well?
I think, and then Force India.
So then it was
I get really confused.
Midland, then Spiker, then Force India, then
Yeah.
Aston Martin.
Yeah.
So it was Midland when they headhunted me, but by the time I started with them, they'd started racing under the name of Spiker. And everyone had said to me that I'd consulted confidentially that moving to a smaller team, I would have more responsibility and more opportunity to impact the design of the car simply because they didn't have as much budget.
Makes sense.
It does, but it was a bit of a double-edged sword. Like I was already working for my dream team and there were already a few cracks that I'd seen starting to appear in terms of my happiness in the role and what I thought it would, like, a 13-year-old with an overactive imagination builds up a pretty elaborate picture of what a job's going to look like. But ultimately, an engineer in Formula One is an engineer. And it was like an engineering job like anywhere else. The office was really quiet. It was full of introverts. We did a lot of computer-aided design, a lot of time spent staring at computer screens. And because I was factory-based, I didn't get to go to races. So I wasn't actually getting that like fulfillment of seeing the results of the car on track.
Yeah.
And so I thought, look, I'm not 100% happy here. I'm going to try a new team and see if that improves my situation. And it made it 10 times worse. Yeah. There were just, if I thought the culture at Williams was not to my suiting, getting to this new team, the culture was like actively bad. And like I arrived on my first day and they didn't have a desk for me. And so for the first 7 weeks, I'd moved to this new team where I'd gone from, being a seminal part of the front wing or the front end team at Williams with my own desk, with my own team. I just went to
sharing a toilet with Sir William.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I went from that to like a dated facility and like I had to hot desk every morning. So I'd kind of arrive and hope that I could get a desk that I could sit at. It meant that I couldn't make somewhere my own. My manager at the new team was like, he just didn't communicate with me and he had me working on a part, I think it was on those, again, that like these top deck wings that like, so I was now working at the rear team at Spiker and they had me working on this top deck wing. I'm sorry, oh my gosh, I'm getting really technical. You're going to have to cut half of this, aren't you?
Not at all.
Love it.
Yeah,
Go
we
for it.
love it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I worked on it for a couple of months. And each time I got it to the stage where it would go to CFD to be tested, I'd take it to the CFD team and they were just rejecting it. And me being me, I thought that I hadn't done a good enough job of modelling. So I went back and I tried to perfect it or make it, more detailed. They rejected it 3 times. And after the 3rd time, I took it to my manager. I'm like, I don't understand why CFD keep rejecting this. And he's like, oh, we changed suspension design weeks ago. That part's irrelevant now. And I said, well, why have you had me working on it for 2 months? And he's like, shrugged his shoulders. Well, it's good CAD practice. And it just made me feel so unimportant.
Yeah.
And like, if that had been also,
Did you feel like a token hire?
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, why have, there's, if you look at the population of the world, there's maybe 150 Formula One aerodynamicists in the world at any one time. Like, it is
Wow.
hen's tooth job to get. And why bother having someone sitting in a seat in your office who's not actively contributing to the team?
Yeah.
I was like, am I that unimportant to you that you couldn't even give me real work to do, or you didn't even think I was worth communicating that incredibly important piece of information on that design change? And it just, they were 2 examples. It was just, the culture was so bad at that team and I just became desperately unhappy.
I was going to say, I can't even imagine what that would have done to my mental health. And also, I feel like in that kind of work, you're doing things where you have a definite answer. And that's right. Like, as in you've got something and you get this definite answer and you get this definite answer. And it's
That's what should happen.
That's what should happen.
Yeah.
And you get that feeling of like, yes, we solved this problem. Yes, we solved this problem. And to constantly have no.
Irrelevant.
Irrelevant. It's like, what does that even do to your
Like,
psyche?
going back and talking about purpose.
Yeah.
I live for measurable progress.
Yeah.
Like, whether it be fitness or like improving the croissant or anything I do in life, if I can see
quantitative.
myself getting a little bit better every day, it's so motivating.
Yeah.
I live for just trying to get better every day. And how can you get better when you're not being communicated with and you're working on something that's useless?
Yeah. Oh, it's awful.
Yeah.
Awful. And how old are you at this point as well?
25, 26.
Yeah.
So still really young.
Yeah. I think as well, there's like lessons that, regardless of how mature someone is, there's lessons that come with age.
Yeah.
And I'm 32 now, and I feel like I look back to when I was 25, 26. I'm like, I was a child then.
Yeah.
Like all the things that you would have learned, and being in such a demanding job as well. And I take my hat off to you.
Well, going back
honestly.
to talking about like how amazing it is to know what you want to be when you're in your teens, it's funny with the hindsight of age and experience. I don't have children, but if a teenager approached me and they were upset or concerned that they don't have a clear direction for their future, I would encourage them that that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because how can we know who we are or what we want to be or what's going to fulfill us when we're 30 or 40 or 50? I think just being a kid that's curious and loves learning is the best thing you can possibly be. And if you are more academic, going to university and just picking something that you love studying, it doesn't have to be with a career focus in mind, because the things that you learn at university go so far beyond the actual curriculum. Like studying aerospace, I learnt about managing difficult teams in team projects and time management and like self-motivation and like dealing with difficult people. It's like
That's more of the real world experience you're getting than the actual.
And like you learn how to learn. And so to pick something like, actually I loved aerospace so much. It was 5 years of university that I just felt so inspired by life and what I was learning. So like I got lucky. I actually did study something that I loved, that I was motivated to go home every night and continue working. But like a kid that doesn't know what they want, pick anything as long as you love it, because then you'll be motivated to do it, and just give yourself time to figure out who you are, because we've got time in our lives to like test out different things, and it's okay if it doesn't work out or if it's not what you wanted, and you can try something new.
I always say that. I'm like, try everything.
Yeah, try
it all.
everything.
Try it all.
Say
Go
yes.
somewhere where, go
yes.
somewhere where you can do this, you can do that, you can try that, and then you'll figure out what you
Same
want.
attitude to dating. Say yes.
Yes.
What's the worst that can happen?
Not all the
The
time.
thing that I always
No,
say.
but no, you could have like, you get a conversation, you might get a drink, you see something new.
I always say
They were
my
awful.
single friends,
Good on you.
try
you
every
always learn something, or
try
you've got a good story.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah.
I always say, like, try every flavor on the menu, because even if you don't get anything, even if the person sucks or this, you get a good story or a nice meal or maybe a crap meal, but then you know you're not to go to that restaurant again.
It's talking about having a good story. It's funny going through the process of writing my memoir, which I haven't really formally said to you guys yet, but I'm writing a memoir.
We're about to get to that, but yes, okay. Kate's writing a memoir, everyone, and
Sorry.
it's coming out soon. Yes, go on.
Actually, you're the first people I've officially told, which is exciting.
I'm so excited.
So-
And you can buy it. You can pre-order it now, I think.
I think you can.
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
Yes.
So yeah, it's in writing it, I went back to sort of like early childhood and really explored maybe why I am who I am and how I've ended up where I have. And I remembered that, I was 7, 8, and 9 years old around that time. I really loved writing stories, like really loved it. Like I had dozens of exercise books full of stories. And then I obviously went off on my path to Formula One and then Lune. And through writing first the Lune cookbook, but now my memoir, I've been reminded just how much I love writing. But yeah, and it's actually something that I really want to explore. I've got an idea for a novel now. So when I finish the memoir,
About escape rooms.
it's actually a
Not escape
psychological thriller. So yeah,
Kind of is.
It kind of is.
Aeroscape. Can you call it Aeroscape? I just coined your new title.
you know what? It's not terrible. I'll commission. We'll talk later. But like, I was thinking about it because I went to Italy on 2 trips to write the majority of the memoir.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was getting close to finishing it, I just had this thought that like, had I not done all the things that I've done and lived life and had experiences, I wouldn't have anything to write about. Yeah. And so I've had to live this really random, complicated, exciting, difficult, challenging, fulfilling life to be at a point where I have perspective and things to write about. And it's nice it feels like a bit of a full circle moment that I've found myself back at 7 or 8-year-old Kate, loving writing stories, but this time it's my story.
No regrets.
No
Don't
regrets.
want to be on your deathbed with regrets.
No, absolutely.
Don't ask what if. Do it.
And I think it's pretty well documented that I got really unwell when I was working in Formula One and ended up having to return to Australia to recover. But when people say to me, do you regret doing Formula One? I don't regret a single second of it. Like I love the life that I've lived and I love the experiences that I've had. And working in Formula One and pursuing that dream to work in Formula One has informed almost everything about the way I've pursued my life since then. And it's funny, I think working in Formula One and discovering the reality of it has made me love it even more, ironically, because now I've just got this deep respect for all the work that happens behind the scenes to make, the spectacle that we see at the Australian Grand Prix every year or what we watch on television. Like there's 450 people back in a factory somewhere in the motorsport valley in the UK.
It's crazy.
Working for 16 hours a day on their computers to make that happen. And I now sit there and I watch it with this just deep level of appreciation and gratitude for all those people back there. Yeah. It's good.
I think as well, like maybe for people that aren't so invested into F1 and they might see that car came 6th or like that driver came 6th or and it's, or even like a constructors champion, they came 5th. But that is such a huge achievement.
Such a huge
especially
achievement.
for like a mid-tier team. Like it's such a huge achievement to see that.
Yeah. Like you see, teams like Haas or something getting a 5th or a 6th and the teams are going crazy celebrating. It's such a big deal because, in comparison, when I worked at Spiker, a team like Haas would be equivalent to that.
Yeah.
The level of resource and like access to the best people and facilities is so much less than teams like Mercedes or Ferrari or McLaren, because they're the teams that are the choice teams to work for. So they kind of get the pick of the litter in terms of staff.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, we don't need to talk about that. It's obvious.
Yeah.
Sorry. I just got on a path.
Oh my
Well,
gosh, no, don't say sorry.
I'm super conscious of time because
Yes.
I know that you have to get out of here because you've got a flight.
I do.
So-
I'm flying up to Brisbane to my loonies up there.
Oh, we love that.
Side note, I'm really sad because I feel like we could talk to you for another
I
2
know,
hours.
but
I think a part 2 would have to come.
Final question then, I guess. And it's kind of like a double-edged question. If any team could call you up today and say, come work for us again, who would that dream team be and would you do it?
First of all, I'm going to answer the second question first. Definitely yes. I have this like burning desire of contributing to Formula One in a meaningful way, being who I am now. I wouldn't go back and work as an aerodynamicist, but I feel like, so when I worked at Williams, we had 500 staff there. Lune's just tipped over the 300 mark. So I'm now running a company of over 300 staff. I'm close to a Formula One team.
Yeah.
I feel like from a leadership perspective and a positive workplace culture and motivating people in a positive way rather than using fear and negativity, I think I would have a lot to contribute and I would love it.
All right, so we're penciling you as team principal.
Thank you. Why not?
Yeah.
just putting it out there from what you're saying.
Which team?
Also, you don't have to answer.
No, I'm trying to, because
would you want it to be like a top tier team, like your Red Bulls, Ferrari, McLaren that's winning? Or is it more interesting now to work with those mid-bottom teams?
I just wonder if it would be super cool to go totally full circle and go
Back
to Williams.
I was going
I
to
was
say
gonna
that,
'cause they're in
yeah.
a real interesting phase where, James Vowles has come
I
out
love
and
James
said,
Vowles.
we're not trying to win right now because we're trying to get ready for 2026.
He is the best thing that's happened
Yeah.
to Williams.
Yeah.
He is absolutely brilliant, and I cannot wait to see. Okay, so one more thing, going back to when I worked at Williams, there was this absolute legend of the sport, a guy called Frank Durney, who was one of Frank Williams's first hires when he started Williams. This guy brought the first wind tunnel into Formula One. Wow. He created active suspension. He's sensational. He was working at Williams again at the time that I was there, but kind of in a very senior mentoring level. And he would wander around the offices chatting to us all. And we were having such a bad season. He said, if it was down to me and it wasn't about money and sponsors, I would just can the 2006 season and start working on the 2007 car now and direct all our aerodynamic effort to that. Wow. Obviously you can't do that.
No.
But I feel like in a way, James has this long-term vision for Williams where he's just making the 1% decisions, chipping away, not trying to do something big and extravagant and Band-Aid fix. He's no, I'm going to fix this from the ground up, and I cannot wait to see 4 or 5 years down the track, I think Williams is going to be up there again. I think he's brilliant, but there's a real emotional connection for me and Williams. When I was really young, it was, Alain Prost, Nigel Mansell, Ayrton Senna, obviously.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
And then went through the period with I think David Coulthard raced for them for a while. There was just this string of people that I just looked up to, obviously Damon Hill, and then getting to work for them, to work for the team when Sir Frank was still alive is something that I'm incredibly grateful that I had the opportunity to do.
Such an honour.
Yeah, it was a privately owned team that was led by the guy that started it, that was passionate about it, and I still have the biggest soft spot for Williams. So yeah, Williams, team principal, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
Love that. Well, you might say that.
One more
Imagine.
question, sorry.
Oh, I love this.
How do you feel about Carlos being there?
Oh, I love Carlos.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, second to James Vowles, I think he's the second best thing that's happened to Williams.
Yeah.
And you know what?
It's an awesome combination.
Yeah.
It isn't. really sad for him that he was the one that lost out at Ferrari because I do feel like he was a good fit at Ferrari.
Yeah.
Although I'm very excited to see what happens with Lewis.
Oh,
I mean, I think
we all
the
are.
entire world is on the edge of their seats.
Yeah.
But I think Williams is still a very family-oriented team. I think Carlos will be welcomed there with open arms. And I think if he's committed to the long vision that James has, then it could be a great decision for him to have gone there.
Just whether or not he's patient enough.
Yeah. That Mediterranean hot blood.
Yes.
If we just like,
We love it.
we do love it.
We do.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.
You're
we
so
could just keep
welcome.
chatting to you forever, and there's
Literally.
so many things I want to keep asking
This
you.
has been such a good chat. Like, it's so nice to talk to people about the technical stuff about F1 and you get it. It's, love it.
It's also
Yeah.
just all your stories and all like the, like you said, the undertones of what you had to deal with moving through the F1 world is so interesting because a lot of people don't think about that. But I think for me, what I really loved was hearing the story when you're packing up to go and it's trying to work out in your head, wait, is this the right thing to do? Because so many people will go, it's not the right thing and stay back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Gosh.
so much great messaging.
Yeah, so much. So I feel like we just got to the tip of everything, but
Oh, I loved your last two questions so much. For me, the most successful working environments are where there's a true gender balance because men and women approach problem solving in a very different way
100%.
and neither is better. Both of them working together create a better solution than working separately or only having one. So to have a balanced work environment, I think is the ultimate.
I was going to say, I don't know, but I can see you and Susie Wolf
Oh,
doing
I love
something
her.
incredible together. And I don't know if it's like for F1 Academy or something, but I see something for you. I see it. I see the two of
Maybe
you.
that's the dream
Maybe
job.
that's
I
the
see the
dream.
two of you. Yeah.
I think I need to meet Susie this year.
I think
I don't
so
know how
too.
to.
Let's
We are
manifest
supplying
it.
the Mercedes F1 team.
Oh, well, that's
100%
We're going
you'll
to make
meet
that
her.
happen somehow.
Yeah, can we?
Yeah.
We're going to make it happen.
Great, I
I want
love
to
this.
record that. I'm going to be on my phone, spy cam.
Can you?
You caught this footage. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's do
Yeah.
it.
Oh my God, pinky
let's
promise.
All
Let's
right,
make
so
it
next
happen.
time you guys will see us together, we'll be spy camming in the Mercedes garage at the outside.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you can relive me Monaco 2006.
Yeah.
All right,
What an
we know
incredible
you have to
interview.
get out of here.
That was so
Thank you
good.
so
Thank
much,
you.
Kate.
Thank you so much.
Just
Kate.
love you guys.
We love
too.
you.
And thank you for the croissants.
You're
Yes.
welcome
Oh, the
anytime.
best.
And happy birthday.
Thank you.
Best birthday.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Great.
Oh, that was so good. I'm like, I just want to keep
Get Tommy.
talking.
I know.